This is the Real Footy podcast. Coming up, the finals script is flipped on its head with three teams winning interstate in week one. Collingwood and Geelong took the direct route to the prelim finals, while the Hawks and the Suns won absolute thrillers on Saturday. And the hunt for the AFL's next chairman has officially started and winding up. All that and more right after this.
It's unheard of. Here's Dacos.
Dacos outside of the right move. He's kicked an absolute cracker. One of the best the game's seen. Gets their second.
Another one. Three-quarters going on.
Oh, no. What's that? Guthrie's levelling from behind.
Walk away.
Oh, dear.
Wow. These are scenes we rarely see.
Ginnivan could go again. He eyes the goals. He lets it rip. It's coming back. Ginnivan's kick three.
He goes long. Swallow! Incredible! What a moment. He's bled for this club, and he stands up in their biggest moment.
Hello and welcome. My name is Michael Gleeson, and joining me today are Niall and Caroline Wilson. Welcome to you both.
Hello, and what a
weekend.
an unbelievable weekend. Only one home team won.
Yeah.
And that was the one I didn't tip. Geelong were unbelievable.
Yeah.
They look ominous. Their timing's been brilliant. You know, they get annoyed when you say this, but they did have a soft draw going into the finals.
They did.
Didn't seem to hurt them was the point. You know, the query was, you got a soft draw, and whether they can't avoid that, was it going to hurt them when they finally had to step up a gear? And the answer was emphatically no.
Well, the benefits of not having the biggest thing that I see right now is personnel available is the biggest factor in the premiership race. So Geelong have got no injury other than Reece Stanley, really, of anyone that matters. And Reece Stanley, he's not Max Gawn, right?
In fact, is he uncontracted just to go off field for a minute?
I'm pretty sure he is.
Yeah.
So then you look at Collingwood had problems 2/3 of the way through the season where all those small forwards were not there. Jordan De Goey looked like he wouldn't get to the line. Suddenly Jordan De Goey's back, and you can see the difference he makes to a final, and he's a proven finals.
And conversely, Jake, Brisbane had a really tough run into the finals.
And then have got some injuries. Then Lachie Neale's not right, and he comes back and he's injured, and they look banged up, Brisbane. So it's just sort of the physical health, and Isaac Rankin, of course. When you don't have many stars, if you don't have one,
you lose one.
You lose one. And then the Giants, if Josh Kelly had been able to play, you haven't watched that game.
The whole game.
If he could play a whole game, they would have won that game. And it's just a personnel, what you've got, what you haven't got, and how fit they are in these micro margins. That's how I see it.
Who would have thought, and we'll go through them, but the last game of the round would be the best.
Yeah.
What
absolute
a game.
Cracker.
And,
the Hawthorn game was good too.
Yeah.
I thought Fremantle Gold Coast was better, though. It was just that slightly bit more dramatic, obviously.
We'll work through them. So off the top, we'll go, the Collingwood-Adelaide game was the first one up, and the expectations were Adelaide at home. Collingwood form was poor coming in, patchy, just lost to Adelaide only weeks before at the same venue. And yet it didn't play to that script. And I think my misgivings with Adelaide, particularly with Rankin out, were that their midfield is thin. It's Dawson, and then it drops away. You've got Saligo, who's a B grader, and not much else. And
Laird is a good player, but it doesn't hurt the opposition.
But didn't you think it was just a team who's experienced in playing finals a bit too, and a team who isn't? I mean, Adelaide looked completely overawed by the experience. There were times when Thilthorpe looked tentative.
Thilthorpe was crook.
Well, he looked tentative as well, and some of the things he did, showed that this was a plan by Collingwood. I mean, I've got to say, Craig McRae has come out smelling like roses after some of the things that he did, particularly bringing in Mason Cox.
Yeah.
I did not. I mean, I saw that and I just scoffed.
You can have a two.
He was right. I was wrong.
He took about 2 or 3 marks for the game, 2 contested marks, not much else. But he got the ball to ground, and that was all they had to do.
Got the ball to Steel side bottom, which is
he stand in front and Steel side bottom robes it and kicks it. Of course, Steel side bottom kicking off one step.
But also even that Steel side bottom moving to a half forward flank.
Yeah,
that's also
a lot worked. And Darcy Moore, of course, hadn't had a great year. played him out, certainly a year.
Made a mistake early and all his teammates got around him and he just sort of grew. He was extraordinary. Mind you, some of their kicks, some of Adelaide's...
They were bombing. And
there was a lot of... I saw Alistair Clarkson talking about this on the AFL website. There was a lot said about Darcy Moore and he was fantastic, and Quainer, the intercepting games they played. But the pressure on the ball carrier kicking it in was immense. And I think that's something that the Crows hadn't dealt with the final before, is Collingwood's pressure was through the roof. And when you get the ball in the midfield, you're suddenly under incredible duress to get it forward. And there was a bit of panic sets in then. And then you get these bomb entries. The one bit of play where young Curtin, who's a tremendous young player, got the ball in the back line and he didn't look the U-turn. He did the kick across his body rather than handball to a teammate backwards because the pressure was so great. And he just hooked it straight to Darcy Cameron, I think it was.
I was also surprised by a couple of things Adelaide. Like Lockie Murphy shut down Josh Dacos last time they played. Collingwood's got one rebound runner, and it's Dacos, and he distributes. And they've moved Houston up the ground. Quain is a good intercept marker. He doesn't, and Maynard's a good player, but they don't tend to run off. Whereas Dacos is the one. So I was surprised at the lack of attention to him. They put Ben Keys on him, and he was terrible, and he had to be moved off him after half time. And you thought, well, why would Murphy's just done a good job on him? Why wouldn't he have been brought in to play on him again? And that didn't make sense to me. Peatling 3 handballs for the first half. Like, really?
I think the biggest factor in the game was Adelaide Crows couldn't get the ball to ground in their forward line. And Collingwood kept marking it. That's the first thing. And the second thing was in the midfield, when Collingwood got that run on and De Goey's front and centre, Ned Long is playing on Jordan Dawson, and he was instrumental in this. And it's a blue-collar player. They've done a job on Jordan Dawson, and I think...
After quarter time. I don't think he had him for the first quarter, but he took him from quarter time, and it was... Yeah, and that third quarter, Ned Long's clearly his best game. And, you know, it was running with the ball, helped create some goals. Nick Dacos... You know, we've gushed about him often enough, but he was terrific. The De Goey thing of coming back, at the moment, if his body holds together, they've been validated for how they handled him during the year. Put him away, deal with the injury, give him another pre-season, in-season, and bring him back in for finals.
He was fantastic. And you're right about Dacos. I don't think we needed the F word, though, from Nick Dacos.
And McRae.
And the coach after the game. And they weren't just spur of the moment F words either. There's something going on there, and this whole club.
Speaking of which, though, I don't think we needed the entire Real family to gate crash the press conference with Matt either.
Well, that was only on Fox. That was,
So how does it was sort of entertaining.
It was entertaining.
How does Adelaide bounce back? Do they bounce back? I think they will.
Yeah, it's a dicey game. I'm not sure. So I'm not sure what will happen. I think Adelaide will be better, but I think Hawthorn and Adelaide looks like a very even match to me.
If you talk to Adelaide people before the finals, the two teams they least wanted to play in finals were Collingwood and Hawthorn, just for matchups and history and how they've played against them.
Yeah.
And now they've caught them in the 2 weeks.
So what about Bobby Hill? Does he play or not? I think not, but obviously he played pretty well in the VFL.
I would. I'd play him as sub, possibly. Well, you'd want to be really confident of that Howe is completely fit and ready, and that there's no risk with Howe. I mean, he's been subbed out of a number of games that he's played, missed a bunch of games, so you don't want to take 2 players in that are dicey. But I don't think Hill is really that dicey with his fitness. It's a matter of just how much footy he's missed. He's got pace. It's not a run all day position as a small forward. And he's not lost his pace for that. So then it's just, who would the opposition least like to see you play? And I think it's Hill. And on that basis, I play him.
Well,
and you play Mason Cox again, don't you?
Yep.
It comes down to the sort of almost the tendency of the. I would say with Hill, it would depend on him going to all the training sessions and doing everything right. And then that's what it comes down to. If he does that,
we haven't seen that yet. We don't know yet, do we?
Well, if he does that, if he shows up at all the training sessions that he has to, and he'll be fit enough to play a game. He has to do that and show enough commitment. And I think that if he does that, I think it's more likely they play him. Bearing in mind, coaches have different views on this. Some coaches, Mick Bolthouse, had this disagreement with Luke Ball. Luke Ball said you have to play him, and Mick Malthouse said no. And some coaches are more conservative. Alistair Clarkson strikes me as the sort of coach who would just definitely play him. Right? I think it's conservative versus Damien Hardwick, I would say, would play him. Like, I can see, we said it with the Swallows.
Kevin Sheedy probably
Kevin
would too.
Sheedy would absolutely play him. So it's sort of the bold coaches would play, and some are more about the whole group. And it's like, well, hang on, we can't be doing this if they haven't earned the stripe. So I think the compromise will be you show up, you train, and if you do all those things right, we'll pick you. And if you don't, we won't.
I think it'd be interesting what they do with Howe in the first instance. If he's fit, do they play him, and do they play him from the start, or do they sub him?
I definitely
make him no, he'll play.
Yep.
But do they bring him in as the sub to come on, or do they plan to sub him out?
I think you bring him on at the beginning. I agree
and Parker
about Hill.
Probably unfortunate because I thought he played really well. Parker, but he probably becomes the sub then.
So, Jake, is Brisbane's premiership defence orbit over, or can they rebound from this?
I think they can rebound because they've got a Gabba game, and they can kind of. To me, it's going to come down to how many. Like, is McCluggage? Can he get back? He had that terrible game, Mullen sitting on him. That was a masterstroke by Scott.
Yeah.
Like, I look at that now and God, like with Neil, because Neil got 32 possessions. I know he's gone for the season. That's a bit of a disaster. But they beat Fremantle without Neil by 9 goals over there, the same team.
Yep.
So I'm not writing them off, but I would say I'm concerned by things going against them, not the result as much as what's happening. Like, lose to Geelong in a qualifying final, you get another chance at the Gabba. You'll come to Melbourne. If you win, you'll play Collingwood. They beat Collingwood quite well by 3 or 4 goals last time they played. They can beat Collingwood if they're at their best. And they can get into the grand final, and who knows? But they're just things are going against them.
Yeah, I think logically you're saying
It
yes.
doesn't, and losing Hipwood too. I mean, structurally, their forward line compared to the forward line they won the flag with is pretty decimated.
Joe Danaher would be nice now, wouldn't he?
Oh,
But isn't that the takeaway? As much as Neil was the disappointment in the story, they lose Neil. Yes, you sit on McCluggage. I thought that they just looked impotent up forward. And I can't see how they win the flag from here. I logically
I
no,
was really,
and I think that the depth, the shallowness of their forward line was what was telling. It was kicking to Logan Morris. Sam Day it's been a good, honest toiler, but he was unable to have any impact.
yeah, Logan Morris didn't have. I mean,
he's 20. And,
I know.
He's a kid.
And was Levi Ashcroft? He was subbed out.
Yep.
He's a kid. I mean, I worry less about Brisbane long term, given the age and profile.
Yeah, but for this next month,
year,
campaign.
won't that be an extraordinary Q clash? I mean, given the Gold Coast completely killed them last
biggest
time.
game in Queensland. It has to be the biggest game ever played in Queensland.
Extraordinary.
Including when Brisbane had played prelim finals up there. This is, for the sake of Queensland footy, this is amazing.
I had this thought after watching the Suns game. I just felt, because I really, obviously, Caro, there's someone dear to you that I wonder how he would feel about this, but Essendon Football Club, with all their problems they're going through and that are ongoing in the off-season merit, up for grabs potentially, whatever's going to happen there. I felt like, Essendon need an Anderson Rowell. They need something like that to happen. 2 guys, they're not going to get pick 1 and 2, but 2 guys to walk into their club like that. I just watch, because they're their best players almost every game.
Yeah,
almost
whether
every
it's an
game,
Anderson Rowell, whether it's a
and
Roughhead and Franklin,
whoever, they need something like that.
And they did not look overawed by the finals experience. No. Mind you, Fremantle don't normally win finals and play in very few.
We're jumping here. We'll go.
Okay. Sorry.
The Cats, Jake.
Yep.
The key thing out of that is, we're purring. We're unaffected by the thing. And as you said, the Mullen thing was extraordinary. And Blitzarv's rucking, losing, not having Stanley. Ruck's always been a bit soft for.
And when he's not there, he goes to the wing. And Tom Atkins. I mean, they've got their unsung heroes are so extraordinary. I mean, we interviewed Tom Atkins on 3AW on Saturday, and he sort of half scoffed at me, going, "You're there," because I talked about some of the bigger moments, like Ollie rebounding that goal and Danger shrugging the tackle in Jeremy Cameron's first quarter, and he was like, "Yeah, they're the things you see, but what we see was I mean, they think that was one of their great defensive performances.
Well, it was.
Which helps when you got Jeremy Cameron.
Yeah, I spoke to Tom Stewart in the rooms, and he couldn't hide his not joy. It's not that sort of, doesn't come across as that sort of personality. It's more,
We showed
satisfaction. Him. Like he was just very.
What about when he kicked that goal?
Yeah, I asked him about the goal, and he was pretty wrapped with that. But the thing about this was, I felt their attack on the ball and their attack on the man and the aggression of the players around the ball. You watch a game and one team just looks like they're anabolic, inverted commas. Wrong word. But intense. The intensity is just so great compared to the other team. And I just felt, you watch it and going, Geelong are just...
Well, that's what made...
And it's cool, Chris Fagan sort of admitted that after the game, didn't he?
Well, that's what made the controversial moment of the game with Rayner so much more significant, because it was so against the trend of everything in the game. They were going to be 33 points up. He flops. I think that it felt unfair, not just that you get a free kick for a player flopping
despite
like that.
the ongoing warnings from the umpire.
Yeah, to both of them. And but the umpire in that sense had to also have the common sense to just say, get up. Just do that. Lift the hand and say, stand up.
I know.
The fact that it was brought to the other end of the ground means that it wasn't just a free. It was 150 free and 150 metre free kick penalty.
I've often wondered about that. I suppose I can understand the principle why the rule is like that. But when you see it happen so dramatically, you do wonder: is this actually the right rule? Is the rule right that someone can be having a shot for goal and then they can have a shot on the goal square at the other end?
Yeah. Do you bring it back to the middle then with the second free?
Or just where Stengel was, maybe.
The rules committee should
just flip
at least discuss it.
At least flip it to where Stengel was.
It was a terrible moment.
And silly by Zach Guthrie too to then.
Oh, that was dumb. It was dumb. And Geelong were Geelong was so calm and collected about it in the moment and after the game. I mean, Chris Scott gave a slight dig to Rayner and made it quite clear that he thought he flopped. But in the moment it happened, they were pretty calm about it, and I reckon they must have known they were in control of that game.
Oh well. Yeah, I mean, the fact was that...
The scores were very misleading.
Those goals brought it back to being, a 3-goal game when it was, in fact, a 6-goal game.
Plus the early misses, from Geelong in the first quarter.
That narrowing of the margin from those two goals didn't change the fact that they had no control of the ball. So, and no control of the midfield. So it got them theoretically some momentum, but it didn't take them anywhere. And...
Not sure we'll see that umpire again for the rest of the final series, and I'm not sure we'll see... Well, there'll be players having a crack at flopping, but I don't think it's going to get them anywhere. Did you say that he should have been fined?
Yep. Yeah. When you can come out and say, that guy was... That was the wrong free kick. That free kick shouldn't have been paid. And correctly said that the Guthrie one was correct. Yeah, of course. I mean,
but they very rarely do. They say they've changed the rule, but how often do they act upon it?
You've admitted the rule. The decision was wrong because a player went to ground too easily and tried to draw the free kick and conned the umpire. What more evidence do you need of staging? Like, I don't want him to miss it. You don't miss a game for it, but you need to have some extra penalty. Otherwise, all you're just saying after the event is, "Oh yeah, your conning of the umpire worked, and it was." Led to a goal in a final that changed momentum. Slightly changed momentum.
Well, it didn't really.
No, but it had the capacity to. In another game, you do it again and you go, well, we're just going to allow that.
Yeah. Just the other thing that's come in. Everyone says umpiring's worse than it's ever been, and I really don't agree with that. One thing was, I thought the GWS Hawthorn game was well umpired.
Yep.
And I thought the Gold Coast Fremantle Gold Coast game was well umpired.
Yep.
And I thought the Collingwood Adelaide game was pretty well umpired. I don't see many complaints about this. 3 games. There's one game where it's not.
I thought the rest of that game was well umpired. There was just one really bad
really bad howler. Yeah. So what it is that we now see everything, whereas in the past, showing all of our ages here, we didn't see everything. Now we're seeing everything, and the camera work and everything is so much up close. You see the off-the-ball incidents. You see when someone flops, you can now see it.
No, you're right, Jake. I think the umpires overall had a really good weekend, and unfortunately, a shocking decision has marred that for the sort of whole narrative of the finals. Now, can we talk about GWS and Hawthorn?
Yep.
GWS, I mean, they've gone from losing a preliminary by a point 2 years ago. Then last year, the straight sets disaster, particularly the Brisbane one. And now they've lost an elimination final.
So this one was a flip of last year, but they're still the same result. This one, they at least came back rather than got the lead and just frittered it away. So, yeah, okay, good. You showed some ticker to go back into the game, but you're well behind beforehand. You've lost, and what's that, 4 finals in a row. That's...
Yeah, you talk about, and we talk about Toby Green and how, he's now 32 or about to turn 32.
Looking his age.
He didn't have a great game.
He played on a good player, though.
Yeah. Hardwick is the perfect picker.
That was
Perfect
a
opponent
great
for him.
The best player in the league to play on Toby Green nearly as a forward. Like Blake Hardwick, I mean, we're all, as I said, it was a good weekend for people called Hardwick. How's Mariana Hardwick going?
She's a bridal designer.
That's right. So anyway, he was just fantastic, and Gleeson wrote about the sort of the blue collar players, because you've got and so did Andrew Wu, the Hollywood players of Ginnivan and. The Wizard didn't do much, but they had those players. But then they've got these.
Well, they're the ones that draw the
attention.
But in fact, the more consequential players, certainly in this game and in a lot of Hawthorn games, are these running players. That Carl Amon and Jarman Impey had a cracking game.
Yeah. He's been good, Impey.
Oh, really good. And they've got that
2 guys
who
are so much better players than they were at Port Adelaide. I have to say, and you know what Jarman Impey has become an Indigenous leader. The Indigenous leader among all the players. And I remember meeting him as a young kid at Port Adelaide and thinking he was in no way a leader. He wasn't a terrible person or anything. He just struggled in groups, and his development is extraordinary. And speaking of, well, not development, but you did the piece on Jack Gunston, didn't you?
Yeah.
That was a great piece.
Thank you.
But I just would not have thought in 2025 that Jack Gunston would be going
Neither
into
did he.
A semi-final.
He didn't think he'd be getting another season last year, and then he put together a few games that got him there, and
he's so important to them now, isn't he?
I do like the fact that the other forwards, when they say he brought him in as a coach of the forwards, and they say, what's your philosophy? Get out of the way and let him kick it to me.
Well, and speaking of which, how would you as an on-field coach Marby or Chol?
Oh, God.
Because he just does, he's almost one of the most compelling players, I reckon, in the game to watch. Because
did Damien Hardwick get to the Gold Coast and reject him? Is that what happened? Or had he already left the Gold Coast?
He'd already left.
Right, okay.
But still, he does some brilliant things, and then he just drops marks, and then he does some blinding thing, and you go, this guy should be a world beater, and then he just does something inexplicably
He
unwise.
strikes me as a better small forward than tall forward. Like a lot of his best work is done at ground level rather than hitting pack and taking a mark. But very good player. Weddle as well was good for coming back in. Didn't have a great game, but didn't have didn't have a bad game. But that I suggested I reckon he's a good matchup to put back onto Tex. I think they could exploit that because he's good enough overhead, but then the run to just take off on him. I think Scrimshaw they could put to him, or Sicily. I think that they've got the players to be able to. I think they'll beat Adelaide. I've got a feeling it's going to be. I know it's the weekend to fall out of love with the losers and in love with the winners, but it certainly feels that way to me.
It is a year in which the top 8 was Adelaide were way out, but very close in terms of.
At the end they were way out. Collingwood way out for a period, and then they fell over, and then.
But Adelaide's, again, the fixture skewed the season. Adelaide had this easier draw. Adelaide didn't have injuries, and Adelaide are not a better team than Geelong. They are not a better team than Collingwood. They are not a better team than Brisbane. Everyone knows that. And they got to minor premiers. To win a final this year would be more than a pass mark, even though they were minor premiers. I don't think the ladder reflected the 8 so close. I mean, Adelaide are probably closer to Gold Coast in where they sit, in my view.
Just a quick one more on Hawthorn before we move on. Bigger picture, what has achieved Sam Mitchell? He moved in and everyone thought it was going to be a 5-year rebuild. Well, not everyone, but he's turned that team around so quickly. And to back up the way he has from last year.
And a little word for Rob McCartney too. The people there say he's very much like the Fagan to Clarkson. He's really this driving force behind it, and has been and completely sort of under the radar type of character, but really important. Gunster was really strong on how significant he was, and that he was a mentor to him before he left, and continued to speak with him throughout.
And took the call when he
took the
came
call
back
and
with his
didn't know
tail between his
what was
legs.
going to happen when he got up there, and then said, "Oh, what about coming back?" And he's like, "Right." Didn't expect the yes and got the yes.
So the Suns make the finals for the first time, win one over at Fremantle. We've got the Fremantle coach on a rolling contract, Justin Longmuir. He'll keep his job.
He'll keep his job.
For
They're
next
still very
year.
young. They keep getting younger.
Yeah, but that was
At home.
That was a poor first half.
Yeah.
Second quarter, terrible.
Yeah.
And I think that's the takeout of the game, is that, Bailey Humphrey, very talented players, got off the chain. Gold Coast weren't marking the ball in their forward 50, and they were just scoring all these. They were very Richmond-like in how they scored. There were a lot of broken play goals and a lot of goals with inside 20 metres. There was a whole lot almost in the goal square that they scored, and snaps that were front and centre. This was very Damien Hardwick.
But
whatever anyone says about Damien Hardwick, this was a triumph.
Oh, he's a brilliant coach.
Their game, Caro, is lean. It's a finals game. So particularly if the ball's a bit dewy.
But also it was very Damien Hardwick that Ben Long, you get it forward to these sort of battering ram medium forwards where he's not a fan of third tall forwards unless they play like a Ben Long. And, Jai Farah snapping one, he's not a combative type like Long, but, him snapping one. Their defence was really strong, I thought, and the run from behind the ball was really, really strong. Obviously, Real and Anderson. But Humphrey just broke it open. That 3 goals in the second quarter. I just felt that, when you say Fremantle, it was bad for us. I think they just got to the point of break glass and just started to take risks, and they were hitting diagonal kicks to the corridor, and Brayshaw and Sarong were taking off through the corridor more than they had done in the first bit.
Sarong could not have done more to get his team over the line, in my view. I thought Sarong was tremendous, and
he was.
He was the best player on the ground, both teams, in my view.
To get ahead and then lose it. I mean, the last 5 minutes, the high drama.
Mac Andrew.
And
he's following. You've written
Tracy.
about this.
Tracy.
So Tracy goes down there and then Tracy's back to the ball. Like, what the hell are you doing?
So in a way, it was a tactical move by Fremantle.
Yes,
that caused, which I think.
I don't think they would have gone. I don't think they would have sent Mac forward
if Tracy
hadn't gone there
back to try and support.
Yeah,
those
so he
numbers.
went back with him, and then took the mark, and then it's like the thought hadn't ever crossed his mind that he would miss the goal.
Didn't Andrew say something?
Yeah, he said, "Oh well, I've been defending you all game. See how you go defending me."
Yeah. And
cocky.
And asked if he was nervous when he was kicking for goal, and he looked at so someone had asked him to set his hair on fire.
Yeah. It's like, why would I be nervous? It's like, as I said previously, that Jeremy Cameron's like that. Like, people have asked him, but in different moments through his career, were you nervous doing that? And he sort of look at them like, why would you be nervous? It's just football, and. A lot of the rest of us would be nervous.
Who's favourite going into that game? Brisbane, Gold Coast?
Brisbane's record over Gold Coast would suggest they are. They were a high finishing team.
They're more banged up, though.
It's at their ground, not Gold Coast's.
Watch on the weather. I want to see that if this game's nice and dry, I think that will help Brisbane with their kicking game. I reckon if it turns into the Hardwick style, which is a little bit slippery, a lot of balls on the ground, a lot of pressure, a lot of handball, Gold Coast will be every chance. Yeah,
I reckon Gold Coast mentality shifted after that final round, the Essendon game, and it just felt like the week before when they lost, when they should have won, and they cost themselves top 4. I just think they choked. I think that they were immature and thinking, and the pressure of everything got to them, and then they've reached the final. They felt liberated, and they're just actually playing. And we all
feel they should have made finals with this list last year.
Yeah,
imagine if they got into a prelim against Collingwood Football Club, where you would have this bizarre thing of 90,000 people at the game. It'd be like the grand final, but with 85,000 Collingwood supporters or whatever the number is, and about 19 million Australians wanting the Suns to win on television.
Yeah.
I reckon that
Well,
would
it
be
happened with
fascinating.
GWS a few years ago.
Yeah.
And
But
they
this is a bit more of a fairy tale than GWS because it's the first time they've been in.
Yep, I guess so.
Yeah,
Yep.
Well, fairy tale-ish. I mean, there's still those that consider them a nepo baby and aren't quite as enamoured by the Gold Coast Suns.
So did Swallow play as sub?
Well, you kick the winning score, you'd reckon you'd give him a go.
Hardwick was a bit equivocal about
Yeah.
it. He wasn't sort of saying, "Oh, he's definitely in."
No.
No.
Like, that was
One
interesting.
moment.
He had a one poor look. I
Bad
hope
kick,
he
he had a
does
bad-
play. He had a bad.
One other
terrible
player to
kick.
mention, Patrick Voss, who's sort of, a polarising figure. He doesn't lack for confidence. He had a kick from the wing that set up that goal that then got them ahead. It was brilliant. It was cut straight across the half-forward flank. It was like the vision and then the execution was. I didn't think he was a player that could get to the level that he's got to, and he's been good. Invested in. All right, we'll take a break there. Come back and talk more about the AFL chairman position. I was at Quainer.
Yes, I want to talk about what we all saw at the final on Friday night.
All right, we'll talk about that.
We saw drama being played out right in front of us behind the glass.
A tasty little teaser. Come back and join us.
We're online all the time. Just search Age Real Footy on Facebook or Twitter.
And then Dawson throws it on the boot. Outside 50. Quaynor, it'll be re-entered.
Spreads it wide to Quaynor, who's a good start to this game.
Well, welcome back. And, Jake, the Adelaide game wasn't without its other elements of controversy, but more contained to what was the noise coming from the stands rather than happening on the ground.
Yeah, look, pretty disappointing. I think you can use more emotional language about what it was with Isaac Quaynor getting booed, but it was not a great reflection on the game, not just Adelaide fans, and it wasn't every Adelaide fan. And,
No.
and we get this. We've been through this with Adam Goods and other players. It's not a great thing, and I don't know. I think Matthew Nixon handled the Quaynor thing really well. Sorry, the Rankin matter really well when it first happened, and then I think he didn't handle it so well
When he got asked about
when he
it
got
after
asked
the
about it
game.
after the game. And I think that the cues that the club gets, and where I think this has all gone awry, is that, and this is sort of an inevitability of the process, because he got a big sentence straight off the bat. Adelaide are lawyering up and fighting it, and they're getting right up to John Olsen, the chairman, I believe, making contact with the AFL.
Goiter.
So it's getting to that level of seriousness, fighting for Isaac Rankin to get a more lenient penalty, partly for the player, not simply for the outcome for the club, but for the long term of the player. So you end up in this situation, and then what that does is that means you end up putting a bit of mud on Quaynor. That's where that ends up. That is then it becomes a cue to some of the supporter base. That's how I see it as having played out. Now, part of it's the process. You can't just hang a player without giving them a due process. But when that due process becomes public, which it always is going to, with what we all do for a living.
And they did allow
Does that
it
make
to,
sense?
Yeah, I agree, but they did allow it to drag on.
Yeah.
Give him the sentence on Sunday or Monday, and if they want to take it to the appeals board, do that. Don't do this behind the scenes, lack of transparency negotiations, because I just think that hurt everyone in the process. And angered Adelaide, it angered the AFL.
I disagree with you about the whole process thing. I don't think it would have mattered. I think that effectively it was as simple as 1 and 1 equals 2. They saw their player missing. They blame him for doing it. They're going to boo him.
You don't think Adelaide played a part in it?
Oh, not as significantly as the two players.
Yeah, no, of course.
And I think he was always just going to be booed.
Adelaide media and Stephen Rowan 5AA justified it the next day. Said, well, you can understand why it happened, and that's why it happened, because he's the reason he's missing. It was
he's
disgraceful.
Not the reason he's missing.
It was
a ridiculous
disgraceful.
comment from him.
You know what?
And you know who else was a bit underwhelming? And Matthew Nix, Adelaide sort of turned it around later and put out a statement or whatever, but Andrew Dillon could have been stronger. I mean, he did say he didn't like the booing, but then he said again, we've got the best fans in the world. Like, Andrew, we know, you don't need to say that. Don't pay homage to the fans all the time. Just come out and be strong. Surely you all learnt your lesson with
Goods.
Adam Goods. And Gillan McLaughlin did when Horn Francis was being booed. And, not just by North fans, but by everyone early in that first season at Port. And Gillen actually came out and said something. And because he'd learnt, you've got to condemn it.
It does say something.
And really condemn it.
It does say something of the psychology of booing, though, when they're also booing Dan Houston because he left another Adelaide club that they hate as much as anyone.
It's because he cleaned up Rankin. That's why they were booing him, not because he left.
And had a crack at Rankin in the previous game.
Leaving Port was a positive for the
I was waiting for him to boo Billy Frampton.
Well, they booed Billy. Few of them booed Billy Frampton, which I found funny. But
so would he.
Yeah, but look, in a way, I think where this got out of hand is, and I don't think if the AFL had initially stuck to a more consistent line on penalty, there wouldn't be, if this was 3 weeks, and it was 3 weeks, and I don't know whether it should be 3 or 4, I don't know. But if you said it's 3 or it's 4, people would just go, okay.
But they've avoided doing that deal with the Players Association for 2 or 3 years. Paul Marsh was pushing for this 3 years ago. And it's in the CBA that they have to have penalties. And I know there's going to be wrinkles with every penalty and nuance with every act, but why not do that?
Well, everyone's lawyers up, though. See, this is the other thing, is that there are people in the game who would go to court.
Well, I tell you what, the booing was loud and repetitive because they had to boo him because the more they booed him, the better he got. It was a brilliant performance by Isaac Quainer.
Yeah, it was. The only other interesting thing of the loss is that it does open up the door for Rankin to play in a grand final.
Yeah,
now.
I wonder how Rankin felt watching the game.
Well, he wasn't sitting with his teammates. He was in a private box somewhere, and it's been a horrible.
Yeah, it's not
speaking of where people were sitting at the football, there was some interesting shenanigans, placement of seating and attendees at functions over the weekend in light of the conversations and the not just conversations, the search for a new AFL Commission chairman. What have you made of all of the
Jake,
manoeuvring?
I cannot overstate how unprecedented the situation we find ourselves in now as a game, whereby the chairman is ultimately forced out by the clubs. Like, he wanted to stand for another term, finally accepted in the last week or two that he wasn't going to be able to do that.
Yeah, he wasn't, just to clarify that, from my information, and there's a lot of...
He wanted to stand for another term. He said it was for a year or two.
I think he was going to... I think my understanding is he was always going to go relatively early in that term, like a year or 18 months. Yeah, so he was, but he didn't want
the clubs didn't. The clubs
didn't
trust that.
No one believes that because he's always kicked it down the road on so many things.
Well, that's what he was telling people.
He was always going to add.
We
more
know what he was telling people. Yep. He wanted to stand for another term. Yep. The clubs ruled, and he, in retaliation, said Jeff Brown was a candidate who wanted to step in with me stepping down, who wasn't prepared to work under me, as Craig Drummond was, the former Geelong president. And so I'm going to get you. And so a candidate who had not been approached by the... You pay an international search firm, and they find Jeff Brown and David Koch and Craig Drummond.
There's about 4 people in the world that they do an international search.
So this masthead, I spoke to Peter Gordon in July, and he said he had not been approached, but he would be interested if approached. He wasn't in the process. Goyder and his team and his henchmen and women realised that they're not going to be able to get Craig Drummond over the line for whatever reason. He didn't have the support, so they approached Peter Gordon. So Peter Gordon's got the numbers on the commission, but he doesn't have the numbers among the presidents. So last week, Goyder blindsided the subcommittee, the nominations committee, and said, okay, I've got 4 names and I'm going to put them to the commission and you're out now. You presidents who are on this nominations committee are out. We've spoken to the candidates and it's going to the commission. Now, at least one president, they had a vote, I think, or they had a discussion. At least one president rolled over. And now we've got a situation where Jeff Brown has said, knowing he can't win on the commission.
He's not going to win on the commission, no.
He's stepped down. Now, he'll
come back, though. He hasn't really stepped down.
If the presidents stand up. Now, what I find a few things. There should have been a succession plan years ago, as there always has been. I've never seen this, and we've never seen it before, where the Commission didn't have a succession plan.
I think that's the source of, if you want to get to the whole source of this mess.
But the second bit is the backroom manoeuvring. So no one has come out and said, I want the job. Jeff Brown hasn't, Peter Gordon hasn't. Well, effectively, I think
Peter Gordon has said, by saying to you, I'd be interested.
If approached.
Well, I think one of the unique things here, I don't think this has happened before.
But don't you think the football public has got a right to be worried about that? Yeah, go on.
Yeah. I think one thing that's unique here is that the person who's coming on is going to be the chairman. And I think that's that changes everything compared to just being a commissioner.
It's a terrible situation
that shouldn't have happened.
Been allowed to happen.
This person should have been there 3 years, 5 years ago. So and this is history is repeated unfortunately with Richard Goyder, that the CEO became a playoff between effectively Travis Auld and Andrew Dillon. Kylie Rogers is in the mix, but I don't think she was ever going to get it. And
after they'd rejected Brendan Gale, who was the club's
preferred candidate. So it ends up in the same thing with that, where if the successor had been Andrew Dillon all along, it wouldn't have been as controversial. And then it ends up being what it was. And then history repeats itself, where there's no successor, no one on the commission for it. If Andrew Ireland had said, let's say he'd said 2 years ago, I'll come on and I'll be chairman for 3 years, I reckon everyone would go, fine. But that's not what happened.
But had they brought Andrew Ireland on 3 years earlier when he was ready to come on,
he probably would have been chairman by now.
Yep.
Which is also
a mess.
As you say, it's the criticism of Goyder and why clubs were sceptical of his bona fides when he said, we broke it in this masthead that he was wanting another term, but then he clarified to say, but I wouldn't stay for the full term, but I think I should stay on just to help Andrew get bedded into the job. Everyone saw what he did with Qantas as well, with Joyce there. They saw what he did with the replacements on the commission, not filling vacancies on the commission, not adding people.
And dragging the Gil McLaughlin
and then the
departure.
Gil McLaughlin departure dragged out even further, and then not having a plan for who they wanted. And it just felt like he couldn't be trusted when he said, I would go.
So we're talking about this around Monday lunchtime, leading into the semi-finals, Jake. The next play is up to the presidents. Are the clubs going to stand up? Are enough of them angry enough?
History tells you.
Or are they going
to... There's also divisions among the clubs.
Are they going to cop this?
There's also, I wouldn't portray this, Caro, this is important, as all the clubs are in one direction. That is not the case.
No.
There's clubs that are supporting... There's even clubs supporting... There's even clubs that support, or leadership of clubs, that support Craig Drummond.
Yeah.
I've spoken directly to some.
There
are some who are firmly for Jeff Brown. I think they're more, I would say, more in the open. And I don't think it's any secret that St Kilda are strongly behind Peter Gordon, and that's from Andrew Bassett. And there is
and I think there are certainly those clubs that support Gordon. Should he not get up, they'd prefer Drummond to Brown.
But isn't it funny that Goyder's two candidates were Drummond, who is a bit like Goyder, a bit of a hands-off chairman.
Yeah, he'll let the executive run everything.
As opposed to Peter Gordon.
Yeah.
I mean, he will be an executive chairman, and that's going to, I think, my prediction is that will be very interesting for Andrew Dillon and Tom Harley and Greg Swan. And I wonder what they all think about this turn of events. I think that, I just think it's fascinating that he's gone for two such diametrically opposed candidates in a bid, basically...
Well, I think it's the other thing.
To shove it up Jeff Brown.
It depends on what they want. If you want something that's more where the executive are probably supported, but with a little bit more. Drummond would be the extreme of the executive. Brown would be somewhere in the middle, and I would say Peter Gordon. The sell he'll have is he's a forceful person who will take it up to Volandis and rugby league. So I think that I
reckon Jeff Brown would too, don't you? Gee, I do.
As knowing them both, I would say Gordon is a much more forceful personality. I think everyone who's dealt with them both would, including.
I just think the principle to me is not so much whether Peter Gordon is the right candidate, but this blatant attempt to take the power away from the clubs, having been so annoyed that they forced you out.
Well, the clubs also have to. The clubs don't agree because the clubs are factionalised. So there's big club, small club, north club, south club. There's a bit of that going on in all this as well. And there's also, we can unpack it.
Richard Goyder was taking advantage of, obviously.
Well, I would be surprised if the West Australian clubs weren't supporting a Goyder agenda, for instance, just to make an obvious comment.
Yep.
St Kilda clearly, some of the small clubs are clearly with Gordon.
Well, Andrew Bassett just loathes Andrew Pridham, and so whatever Andrew Pridham wants, he'll go against.
The Swans are going to be heavily with Jeff, and so will Collingwood, and so will Carlton, where Rob Priestley's got a strong relationship with Andrew Pridham. So there are all these things, and we could spend a day on it.
But the principle of the fact that there was no succession plan, that this has come to this, that it's this backroom manoeuvring and politicking where we saw Peter Gordon schmoozing with all the commissioners on Friday night. I think, was he at the Fremantle final as well?
He was also there because he's actually got a significant legal... Having settled the Robodebt case, been running that and get a $2 billion payout, there's another significant case in WA this week where I think he's meeting with the WA government trying to settle something over there too. So
does he continue being a consultant to the AFL?
Has he?
Yeah,
or will he?
Well, he is now.
Well,
he can't be afterwards.
He can't be if he ends up on the commission, let alone chairman. He will not be able to continue those class actions.
So point is, he was in Perth, therefore went to that other game as well.
Handy timing.
Yeah, handy timing. But look, there's also a difference between, you've got Drummond who's run big companies and more a corporate guy.
Like Goyder.
Like Goyder.
Yep.
Which is, if they want to continue that style, then that's fine. You'd go with Drummond. Otherwise, I mean, Gordon is the lawyer, been involved in a hell of a lot of these big cases, asbestos and whatever, run the thing. But he's also got a bigger, in a football sense, he's got a bigger and stronger sense of what, the equalisation and the essence of the game, not the corporatisation of the game. That would be his pitch on it. That it's
Jeff Brown.
Well, he's got strong media credentials too, and he's very well connected with.
And he knows everyone.
The owners of Fox, the new owners of Fox.
So the media would be one of his big
9. He wrote most of the rules. He was there when the draft was set up. He was there when, all the major pillars of the commission that happened in the late 80s, early 90s. He was there and oversaw all of that. So his knowledge of the game's history is there.
But a lot of the history, whether it's
also
the knowledge of the current situation, because a lot of those things he was there when they were first introduced as pillars of the game, but they've changed significantly since they were written.
No, I think he has a great knowledge of the rules. I mean, I think he would not be a hands-off chairman by any means.
The broader question is, why has Richard Goyder got anything to do with this?
Well, they tried to kick him off the nominations committee, but that failed as well.
Why are you involved in finding your replacement if you had no appetite for doing so to find a successor while you were running your term? Why do you get to your end of your term and then say, I will be on the committee that's choosing the next bloke? No. Out.
I reckon we've given this a good...
We've given it enough.
It's interesting, though.
We'll take a break there, come back with quick questions.
Get access to every episode as it drops. Hit subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
He had opportunities to leave. He's stuck with the Suns. He wanted to see them rise. He goes long. Swallow! Incredible!
Welcome back, and we'll go straight into quick questions. One for you, Jake. Should Freo have conceded the goal to David Swallow rather than try to protest that they'd been touched?
100%. They should have conceded the goal. 9 seconds. The message, Erasmus put his hand up, and that was the wrong time to appeal. And the process worked. It was clearly touched. Yeah. And it was the correct decision, but it would have been given Fremantle. It would have been enormous.
Goal from the middle than from.
Well, you've got a chance
line.
like everyone thinks of Nasiah, Wangan, and Malira.
Yeah,
that was 8 seconds that took. They had 10 seconds to do it. He marked it with about
harder
7
to
seconds.
do from a kick in than it is from
a centre bounce. So clearly, if they could have got to extra time, I would have backed Freo in extra time.
Carrie, do you think, we touched on this before, but question for both of you, has Mason Cox secured himself a contract for next year with this one?
Oh, this is so tricky. I mean, you're closer to this, Jake. Last week I would have said not a chance. This week
they've planned on him probably.
I think they planned on him going.
They planned on him going, and now they have to go.
What happens if they go through?
Yeah, he's not costing them much. Keep him on. What did he say last week in an interview? Tall blokes don't grow on trees.
Don't get shorter. Finally, Melbourne start their coaching search today. No, they don't. Their interviews today. They've been searching for a while. They've narrowed it to Buckley, James Kelly, Stephen King, Hayden Skipworth, Brendan Lade and Daniel Giansiracusa. What do you think happens there, Jake?
Well, I think Buckley's in front and someone has to take it off him.
Well, he has to go in front, doesn't he?
He goes in
his
front.
Experience.
He goes in front.
But he's also meeting Brendan Gale this week, who will, I think, let him know that he's got the job. Or that that they will transition him into the job from the start of next year in a consultancy role while he can still work in media.
If he can
Given that they're playing in the VFL from next year.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously, it's still 2 years away. Yeah. So you either start coaching in 26 or 28. Do you take a chance on making a bit of history, or do you move in and take over a list that some people think is still...
and get to stay in Melbourne, if that's where you want to be living.
I don't think he's against moving to Hobart.
No, I think the kids were a factor previously in
I think
they were living.
They're grown up now.
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to be an issue.
Yeah, that's a really intriguing question because the romance of Tassie is something, and he'd be back with Derek Hine. There would be Brendan Gale's a fantastic CEO. It's something fresh and new, but at the same time, Melbourne's further down the track, and you could, if it's about getting that flag, if that's what you're really focused on, then I don't know that getting a flag is actually as important as a foundational coach of a new club. I think in some ways it's more important to lay the foundations of a new club.
Yeah, I think you can do both. I think he'd be looking at it and going,
hard to be the first coach to win the flag. The first coach doesn't usually get the flag.
Well, history says no, but
Melbourne don't win flags very often.
No, that's true.
Depends how well they form this team too. Well, that's all we have time for this week. Thanks for joining us. Thanks also to Channel 7 and Fox Footy for the audio we used in this episode. If you'd like to get in touch, you can do so via email, realfootypod@theage.com.au. Don't forget to subscribe, rate and review wherever you get your podcasts. The Expert Tips will return on Thursday when Peter Ryan and Andrew Wu take you through the semi-finals. I'm off to Tokyo to watch the World Championships. You can tune in for all the athletics coverage from there. We'll see you next week with Jake and Caro and Sam McClure, I think.